Hey nerds, what's up? It is that time of year again where I get to talk about my top fantasy reads of the year. And so today I'm here to talk about my top 5 books that I read in 2024. Now, if you have been around here a while, you know I do have a rule that I usually follow for these type of videos, which is that I usually only choose one book per author for the top list. So for example, in the year where Sanderson had the Year of Sanderson, even though I think 2 of those books would have made my top list, I only chose one of them to just kind of give like a greater variety to my top books and make it more interesting for you guys. However, all good rules are meant to be broken. Said me personally never, since I am a goody two-shoes. But this year I decided I need to speak my truth. And you know what my truth is this year? This. Yes. For a boring video for everybody, 4 of my 5 top books this year were indeed written by George R.R. Martin and are indeed a part of A Song of Ice and Fire. And I'm not sorry. I was looking at my reading list this year and it's just anything else would have felt fake. It would not have reflected my year. So yes, 4 of my top 5 books, you'll also know that I never put them in order. I don't like ordering top books. But 4 of my top books are A Feast for Crows, which is the winner. This is the best book I read this year. A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin. Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And finally, A Dance with Dragons. I actually think that's the order I probably would put them in. Just on their own. Is Fire and Blood better than A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms? They're just hard to compare because A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is like 3 short stories. It's shorter. I did love it though. It and Fire and Blood may be tied. And then, you know, A Dance. That's it. Those were the best books I read this year. I loved them completely. And I don't have a ton to say about them because I made 40-minute reviews on each of those novels that you can check. I'll link them in the description box if you somehow haven't been here. But yeah, Song of Ice and Fire totally stole my heart this last year and part of the year before, obviously, when I read the first 3. It is my second favorite series of all time now. And I haven't, you know, I said this in a lot of my reviews, but I hadn't felt the feelings I felt while reading A Song of Ice and Fire in a long time. There are so few series in my life that have made me just so utterly obsessed and like I had to know everything about them and just constantly thinking about them. I mean, I already reread A Game of Thrones this year and I think I'm gonna plan to continue my reread next year. So yeah, I know that's boring. I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear, but these are my top 4 of 5 books of this year and that is my truth. Okay, and for my 5th book, favorite book of the year, I think I am just gonna go with Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This was super highly anticipated and, you know, I posted my review very recently, so again, a little boring, but I thought it was a very satisfying conclusion. And how often am I able to power through such a behemoth in like ultimately 4 days? Like that book has to be pretty interesting and pretty compelling for me to just totally sit down and feel so enraptured by it. And you guys know I had some problems with the book that I talked about in my review, but ultimately, even without a perfect rating, I mean, some of those didn't get a perfect rating either. I just, you know, I feel so strongly about the Stormlight Archive and I'm so excited that we got a really satisfying conclusion to the first 5 books. That was short, that was quick. I usually have a lot more to say. Because of that, I am gonna do a little runner-up section. And the reason I'm gonna do a runner-up is that I want this to maybe have recommendations for you guys. I'm guessing if you're here, you don't need to be recommended A Song of Ice and Fire or Stormlight Archive. Some of the most famous series on BookTube and just in fantasy in general. You don't need me to convince you to read them, except if it's A Song of Ice and Fire, actually, because like, there's all those crowd like, well, it's never gonna be finished. I don't know how many times I can say it. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter, it is worth it. It is worth it. It doesn't matter. Make peace with it and read it making peace with it, and it's worth it. Okay, but I do have some runner-ups. And particularly these runner-ups are actually books I haven't given a dedicated review to on this channel for the most part. And so I think that will make them more interesting. The first one is actually The Green Mile by Stephen King. Now, I haven't read a Stephen King novel in a really long time. I read The Stand about a decade ago. I actually DNF'd The Stand, which you would know if you had seen me on a few lives. I got like 500 pages into it. Let me tell you, Loved how it was written, loved it. I was reading the unabridged version, and there was just a scene that was literally so gross and made me feel so bad that I stopped reading it. And I've since learned that a lot of people feel that way about that particular chapter. So, I mean, The Stand is literally one of 2 books I have ever DNF'd. I rarely do it. It has to be pretty bad. So I have heard, though, that's like the only scene, though. So I may go back and reread the unabridged Stand and just skip that part. Apparently it's not important. And then previously I had read one of his short story collections in high school that I don't remember, but I loved. I don't remember the title of it, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. So I don't know why, I just like hadn't really gotten around to reading Stephen King. Kyle from Read by Kyle really, really wanted me to read this and actually gifted this to me, I think, for my birthday. And so I finally got around to reading it, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic. It was visceral. I had some visceral reactions to things written in this book, but in like a good way. And I was really charmed by it. It's more magical realism and a little bit thrillery, but it really impressed me. I highly recommend it. It's a pretty intense book. It's about people who are on death row, and the character work was so fantastic in it, and just a really thoughtful book. One of those books I really felt like I could discuss, had a lot of meat to it, and I always love that about a book. So highly recommend, even for new, like if you haven't read King, or maybe you read King and disliked it, because, you know, I kind of had different experiences with him, highly recommend it. Okay, the next book I want to talk about, actually, I only have the first one physically. I want to talk about the second book, which I just finished this week, actually, which was the second Dungeon Crawler Carl. I only own physically the first book. I read the other one. Only have it digitally and audio, but it was Carl's Doomsday Scenario was book 2. Dang it if I wasn't so charmed by that book. I already liked the first one. I gave it 4 stars, and I was really surprised I liked it as much as I did. But the second one was a step up, in my opinion, in every single way. I was blown away by that book. I gave it a 4.5 stars. It was like, oh, I am for sure finishing the series, and I want to finish it right now. It's just, on paper, Dungeon Crawler Carl. Oh, this is by Matt Dinneman, by the way. He's fantastic. I got to interview him and see him at Dragonstone Nexus. He is so nice, and also Seattle local, so kind of great. On paper, this just didn't seem like a series that would be for me. And so the fact that I feel so strongly about it has been just such a fun thing, and something I want to say, because I think there's probably other people like me who just feel like Dungeon Crawler Carl just does not sound like something I would enjoy. I'm telling you, you should at least try it. It is super silly. It is kind of over the top, but it is so charming, so legitimately funny. And then also, particularly in the second book, which is why I think it works so well for me, he's injecting just the right amount of heart and serious moments and ideas for the larger story that is at play, that it's this perfect blend of hilarious, silly, just easy. You know, I will say, you guys know I hate audiobooks. I tried this on audio, and I have to say, I love it. I love it on audio. So I am gonna say, if you're an audio person, you should try it on audio. I was shocked that I liked it. Really gives it a whole new life. But I can laugh and just find it so silly, but also that there's a deeper story there. Really just makes it hit all the right notes. I am super excited to continue the series. There's 7 of the books right now of a planned 10. So he's writing them pretty quickly, and yeah, just kind of a really unexpected thing for me this year. And then finally, I'm going to just do a classic, which is I finally returned to some Discworld, and it has been a while. I had read a lot of Discworld and just kind of took a break, and this was Witches Abroad. I love the Witches stories, and Witches Abroad, you know, I just read it at the perfect time. I hadn't read a Discworld in a while, and I read this at the beginning of December maybe, or at the end of November, and it was a perfect holiday read for me. Just, you know, Terry Pratchett has such an exuberant style of writing that has so much heart and wit, and just feels so like Discworld is comforting for me, and it made me be like, why have I taken such a long break from Discworld? I think this was my 12th or 13th Discworld book. Oh, I was right. It's my 12th Discworld book. So I'm just reminding myself that I need to get back on the Discworld train, and if you have not gotten the Discworld train yet, please start it. I am doing mostly publication order. Most people don't recommend that. I would say if you don't want to do that, if you're not like me, I mean, I've been enjoying publication order. I would either start with Guards, so that's the City Watch series, or I'm just gonna say the Witches series. All of the Witches books have completely charmed me. I think that starts with Equal Rights. I've read Equal Rights. I can't remember. I'm looking at my books. Equal Rights and Weird Sisters. Weird Sisters was fantastic too, and then Witches Abroad was also fantastic. So if you haven't started, I would highly recommend that. It is a great kind of start of the year series if you need something a little bit warmer. Okay, those were my top books of 2024. I don't think this was a surprise to anyone, but if it was a surprise to you, you can let me know in the comments. Drop your favorite books of the year. I always like hearing what you guys loved. Let me know what you thought about the books that were my favorites. If you also loved them or maybe you hated them, that's okay too. I want to hear about it in the comment section. If you're one of the people who's like, how are you making this when there's 2 weeks left of December? Look, I do that every year. Here's the reason. One, I usually don't get a ton of reading done between now and the end of the year with all the holidays. And two, if I read a book in the next 2 weeks that is so fantastic I want it on my top list, I can just put it on 2025's. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. As far as videos for the rest of the year, usually I take the next few weeks off. I do actually have a video planned for next week, so you will get a drop from me next week, likely on Tuesday, because next Wednesday is Christmas, and I feel like a lot of people won't be watching YouTube, so I'm probably gonna try to get it out a day early. And then the next week, which would be New Year's Day, you probably won't hear from me, but then I will be back after that. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season, and I am so grateful that you have been here, stuck around in this channel, and I am very grateful for all of you. If you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. That is the best way to support me. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, as well as other nerdy rants, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.